Hello, hello. Thank you for coming. My name is Dave Lockie. I am grateful to work at Automatic. I'll explain why shortly. I work as a strategy wrangler, so working on challenges, puzzles that the business has. And Automatic, if you don't know us, is the kind of OG open source company behind WordPress.com, WooCommerce, Beeper, Pocket Casts, and a bunch of other apps you may know and love. It's my first time at an OSS event. It's also my first time giving this talk. Maybe the last time too, so please be gentle, and I appreciate you coming. I do need your help, and that is for the first at least like 6 or 7 minutes of the presentation. Could you not do phones and laptops and things? If it's mission critical and NASA's about to blow up, sure, but it is in the name of science. So yeah, thank you. So what is today about? Obviously it's like a bit of a clickbaity title. I'm not here to sell you Automatic's products and services. So what can you expect? Well, I want to talk about machines and robots and intelligence. I want to talk about my own personal feelings of discomfort with where tech is. I want to talk about my search for solutions and the conclusion I've come to so far. I also want to talk about our bodies and our feelings and our minds and our thoughts. And some of you may already be able to notice skeptical, judgmental, or even excited and welcoming thoughts come into your mind. And that's okay. Whatever you're feeling, whatever thoughts you're noticing, that's part of all of this. They're all welcome. But also take a minute and just notice how your body feels. We're in this weird, unnatural environment of coming together as people that have not met each other in this weird conference center in probably a strange city. So it's okay to feel a bit funny. And I want you to leave this talk with some tools and some resources and hopefully some interesting things to think about. So yeah, it's not necessarily about convincing you of anything new. It's about, I guess to some extent, being vulnerable about how I'm feeling, how I think other people might be feeling, and what I'm doing about that. And maybe there's stuff for you to take away with you as well. But I don't want to keep you waiting for the answer, so I just want to give it to you straight. It's the Gibbons. The robots are working for the Gibbons. I've worked it out after months of research. Clearly not, but they do have something important to teach us, and I will come back to Gibbons. You'll leave today with some extra Gibbon knowledge, if nothing else. But let's talk about robots. So over the last, 5-10 years, it kind of feels like suddenly there are robots everywhere. Where there used to be machines, there are now robots capable of making decisions and doing weird stuff. AI has exploded into our lives, and in a kind of anthropocentric way, it's also exploded into our machines' lives as well. They all now have their own little personalities and names and quirky behaviors. So maybe we can start to answer the question by looking at who the robots work for. These robots are already in our lives. So my Xiaomi, excuse that horrible pronunciation, vacuum cleaner nominally works for me, but I suspect it is actually a secret agent for China. The Tesla cars, of course, will drive you places, but I suspect that they're really just building Musk's empire even further. And this one I only learned about during the research for this talk, which is there is in Japan a Buddhist temple robot that will give blessings and recite sutras. And that robot works for the institution of Buddhism, I guess. Maybe one particular temple, I don't know. But what I want to illustrate is that these are different robots, but they also have different values. They're built by different people, have different values. And so really, this is a question about intelligence, and therefore it's kind of a question about AI. And it was this question that set me off on the track to give this talk in the first place. This is Tim Berners-Lee at South by, and he just asked this question in the middle of the panel: who does the AI work for? I'm like, oh yeah, that seems important. But it was only when I thought about how AI is showing up in our lives, in the robots, in our family environments that it really kind of hit home. Like, I really don't want a robot that is in my kitchen making my food with a sharp knife to have somebody else's best interests at heart. I would rather it was working exclusively for me. So yes, maybe that will connect this sort of more abstract concern about AI alignment with the more kind of practical day-to-day, like lived reality concern for you as well. So I'm sorry, it is a bit of a bait and switch. It is a bit of a stealth AI alignment talk, but I think it's going to come from a different place than certainly a lot of other takes that I've read and heard. So having asked myself this question, as with so many questions I ask, I started regretting asking it in the first place, and then I started thinking, well, I have to answer this one, otherwise it's going to bug me. So I tried to look at things on a first principles basis. I did like a lot of reading, a lot of talking to people, a lot of thinking, I guess. And maybe this is really obvious, but it's like individual people create collections of people who behave differently. Like collective people behavior is different from person behavior. And our AI is being trained on collective people behavior, and that AI is then being applied to robots. And from that last sort of slide, you can see, I mean, if temples are going to start building robots, there is no end to AI proliferation and likely to robot proliferation. Like, it's not going to be just Musk robots. I mean, really hope not. But there are going to be lots of intelligences and lots of robots. So, I mean, any of those robots could turn evil. The Hoover, my Hoover is definitely evil. It tries to swallow everything it can. A little bit worried about Musk's robots, and I guess you can even think of like an evil temple robot. That's probably like a cartoon somebody's written. So yeah, lots of intelligences, lots of robots. Messy. What do we do about that? And I was talking about this, like this research, this thought process, this journey I was going down with somebody, and he recommended I listen to this interview with this guy, James Bridle. Never heard of him before. But he does this interview talking about intelligence, and this like quote really jumped out at me, just kind of hit home. It's like this, oh God, we're just building stuff we just don't understand. And that unknowing, like it feels really scary. It feels like it reduces my agency, because our own intelligence is based on understanding the world around us, understanding what's happening and being able to predict and model and then like take action to be able to respond. That's like the essence of our intelligence. And when we don't understand, when we cease to understand the world around us, it undermines that agency. And that's like that was not a pleasant feeling. And what compounds this is, and I know we're of different ages, but I feel like also kind of similar age, we're like the last generation that remembers what life was like. Some of you don't remember, but before the internet, before smartphones, what was that world like? And that seems important. That's like the human world before this like craziness came. So I find feelings like these uncomfortable, and that's why I kind of wanted to answer it, and I wanted to be reassured that there is a good solution. I have a daughter, and I want it not to be dystopian when she grows up. So I went looking for alignment and consensus solutions around the tech world. I looked at non-profits, and then OpenAI went all corporate. I looked at open source, and there is like a ton of that, and it is part of the solution, but it also doesn't quite feel like enough. I mean, lots of people will use open source, but lots of bad people also use open source to do bad things. So it's important, and I care deeply about it, but it's not enough. I looked at Bitcoin. I'm a kind of crypto Web3 guy. Don't hate me. There's some interesting stuff as well as all the crap. But the Bitcoin consensus, it's decentralized. It's like super hard consensus, but it's very, very narrow. It's about agreeing on the state of a ledger, which isn't really enough for AI alignment. Like, people's values and lives are a much bigger problem space. And even more broadly in like the kind of crypto economic Web3 project stuff, I've not seen any examples of projects that manage to do more than really kind of approve or disapprove proposals, usually around, shall we make more tokens or not? So I haven't, even like in the kind of cutting edge of where tech and consensus is going. I couldn't find anything. And in the end, as so often happens, the solution came when I wasn't expecting it, in an entirely different domain of my life. And I will tell you what that was. But first, I want to do an experiment. And it's for this experiment that you've kindly been refraining from your devices. And as we do this, number one, it's the first time I've tried to do this, so if it goes wrong, I'm really sorry. It may not work. But secondly, notice not just what you're thinking, but please try and notice how your body feels. Some of you might be thinking, oh God, that noticing, that's all part of it, bring it in. So now you can get your phones out, please, devices, as many as possible. Get your phones and devices out. Go to Slido and be ready to participate in science. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is just sit and watch. I have to figure out. Oh no, that is working. Volume. Oh great. Hang on. This might get really loud. No.
I'll tell you. You are the worst person I know. You constantly hit on your best friend's wife. The man pays for your food and rescued you from certain death, and this is how you repay him?
You're the world's worst dog.
And you can open up your phones, you can scroll notifications, catch up on your email, scroll some TikTok, fill your brain, let the algorithms do their work.
Se va a tirar acá en el...
Okay, now you have to do something. Okay, so word association time. What word comes to mind that associates with dream, break, and light? And if you go to this Slido, please put your answers in. Oh, yeah, that would be really good. Thank you. Oh. Wow, it's working. That's great. Okay, thank you. 3 of you, 4 of you. Okay, and we'll do one more. This one may be a little bit harder. I don't know if you need to join a different Slido for that. Cake and Swiss and cottage. What word comes up for you when you think of cake and Swiss and cottage? Wow, loads there. You have some wild associations, you lot. I'm loving that. Okay, all right. That's the experiment. The end of the first experiment. This next bit is. Let's talk about that. There were lots of scattered answers. There were lots of guesses. Kind of showed fragmented collective intelligence. That's what I'm trying to do. Did you feel a bit stressed and a bit overwhelmed and a bit just a bit? That was a weird video. What am I doing? What's going on? That's that fragmented state, that overwhelmed, overstimulated state is what we're training AI on. And that's what these systems understand our intelligence to be. That is the output. So let's try something different. Same people, except for the people who left. Same intelligence, but let's shift our state. So phones away. I will press play. But oh my goodness, that's not what happened last time. Can you see my mouse? There's my mouse. Okay, watch this, but let's also do some triangle breathing, which is 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out, and then 3 seconds hold with the empty lungs. Just do that a few times. Try and do it through the video. Try and feel your body. Notice if some tension slips away. Nice chill times. Okay, let's try again. Back to Slido. Sorry, chill out time is over. Back to work, people. So, same word association. This one's fish and mine and rush. Okay, so anecdotally, I'm going to say that you all converged on gold faster and got the right answer faster. This is like so scientific. We're going to do one more. Last bit of interaction, don't worry. What word do you associate with high, district, and house? Great, my experiment has totally failed. The answer is actually school. But yeah, also street and judge, I'm going to say are now valid answers as well, so well done. Hopefully, as well as being able to think more clearly, you were feeling a bit more chilled and a bit more coherent, less fragmented, less distressed, and that showed up in the results, even if they're totally wrong. Okay, so the experiment is trying to show that the same people with the same intelligence in different states produced completely different collective performance. So our state determines what we create. And this classic of internet culture from XKCD kind of captures why that matters, along with this quote from Nadia. I've heard, like, I have not been to many talks, and I think I've heard maintainer burnout and developer burnout in every single one. Like, it's a real problem for the open source community. And that isn't a great place to be building systems from. The people who are responsible for building and maintaining critical infrastructure are often stressed and overworked and under-resourced. And so we're creating, like, this, the most powerful technology in human history whilst in this kind of bad state. And the systems that we build whilst we're generating that digital exhaust are going to embody those same patterns. They'll optimize for engagement over well-being, speed over wisdom, efficiency over humanity. We're kind of encoding our worst collective impulses into these enduring systems that are going to change the shape and change the future. And so onto like the insight that I had, and it was at a retreat, no ayahuasca involved, just lots of breathing and doing weird stuff. But I realized the power of my body and my heart to connect to my mind and to anchor it back into a felt and lived sense. So at this individual level, I learned that I can be, I can't quite do that yoga pose, but like that idea, right? That we are coherent selves, that we are connected to our emotions and our feelings and our bodies, and that anchors our intelligence. My brain allows me to totally disconnect from my body and almost entirely from reality, and to like drift off into this like very rational experience. It's when I think, it's when I daydream, it's when I worry, it's when I remember. And that's where I can get myself into trouble with my superego. Like the superego is the voice that you hear in your head. It's the judge. It is there to protect you, is to analyze, to optimize, to to judge, like, is this good or bad? Should you do this or not? But if you're not careful, if I'm not careful, it can also trap me in like this fictitious prison of the mind. Like, you're not good enough to do this, or, you know, there's risk involved in doing that. So you can kind of end up living a small life. And also without a feeling of confidence in the decisions you're making, because you're not feeling them with your whole self. You have nothing there except like rationalization, which can take you anywhere. And I know that you've experienced this because I watched my wife and daughter do it as well. Like, when you're locked into your screen, like, hours pass. You know, you get pins and needles, or you need a leak, or you haven't eaten for 3 hours. The internet is so stimulating for our brains, and that we kind of end up moving our consciousness just up into our heads, and we just live there. And it's like this weird, non-real reality, this pure rational state. And so for me, the practice to get out of that state is to get back into my body, to do some exercise or breathing or whatever. And we'll come back to some techniques for that. But it gets worse when we all do it. When we all do it and we all connect together, we create this network of intelligence that is locked into this rational mode. Because none of us, so far, there are no like suits you can put on to like transport your whole self into the internet. So we're just taking our rational minds into the internet. And that means that we're all taking our superegos, these like judges, these like critics, and they all connect together as well into something that I call the hyperego. And it's like this disembodied, unconnected, wild, like personification of humanity running around. And it kind of lurches because it has no grounding in reality. And it moves me, like this state moves me into a place where I'm not responding, I'm reacting. And if you read the news and you're on Twitter, it kind of feels inevitable, like all our lives are getting more digital, all these systems are getting more pervasive. And over the last couple of years, we've even reached this point where it's crystallized into this, like almost this personality, right? Like the AI is just the model of all of that stuff, almost like with one voice. So yeah, I find both these like feelings of anxiety that like we're going more and more into that state, but also like these feelings of extreme gratitude that I live now instead of 100 years ago, that we're like creating this incredible technology and change and potential every day. So it's like this weird tension. I don't know if any of you feel that as well. It's like okay to be feeling the dread and the excitement both at once. I've been reading this book, Nexus, by Yuval Noah Harari. He wrote Sapiens and Deus. And I turned the page, saw this diagram, I was like, right, okay. And this is kind of what's going on, right? We have to be very mindful that information networks, which is the internet, right? This is what happens when we all contribute stuff. Yes, they can generate truth, but it can also generate order. And order is kind of better in some ways because it means that we can all cooperate, we can all work towards something together. It's more durable, like it's less fragile than the truth. And this is what corporate AI optimizes for, right? Like order and power, because they want predictable profits and stable control and measurable engagement. But it's not inevitable. There is choice. And exercising that choice about what we build and how is part of our agency. It's part of what is under our control as individuals. So that was a lot. Kind of went off on one. That's where my head's been. That's what was going on. Let's get back to Gibbons. Hopefully we can like relax. Maybe the Gibbons make you feel happy. So James Bridle, the guy that gave that quote about feeling lost and disconnected from these systems we can't understand, told this story of Gibbons. And it was that scientists were trying to understand intelligence, like when did it evolve? And so they were testing like the great apes, right? The chimps and the gorillas and the orangs and the people and the gibbons. Like, can they all use tools to like reach the food that's just beyond them in, you know, just out their reach of the cage, the limit of their reach in the cage? And it turns out like humans can do it, orangutans can do it, gorillas can do it, chimps can do it, but gibbons can do it. Like, the gibbons just would not use the tools to get the food, though it seemed that they were totally capable. And that, if you know anything about biology and evolution, that's kind of problematic, because the fact that all of the other species could do it implies that their ancestor could do it, like a common ancestor. And it's weird for such a like valuable function to be lost just in one particular animal. So they're like, are these gibbons just being difficult? Do we have particularly stupid gibbons, or is this like a gibbon thing? They just don't like using tools. Until one day, one of the researchers hung the tools from the roof of the cage, and almost straight away, a gibbon took the tool, got the food, problem solved. And it turned out that the problem was that gibbons brachiate, right? They hang from branches, and that's how they move through the forest. And so their intelligence is designed to solve upwards-looking problems. Like, it's up here, it's across, and it's up. Whereas most apes are like dealing with ground stuff. And so their intelligence was, exactly comparable, but it was the embodiment of that intelligence, the context of that intelligence that made all the difference. So there's your gibbon fact for today. Only know how to use tools hanging up in the cages. I'd like to feel that in a survival situation, that's going to come back and be like a really useful fact for at least one of you. So, so how does that apply to us? Why do we care? Well, it's because we're the same. Like, our context is defined by our bodies, but it's also defined by the world around us. And the challenges of open source economics and expectations are like things that you're very familiar with, but you're also aware that the world around us is changing. We've entered this period of what feels like liminality, right? Like, every day is a new unit of time. There's like new news, a new model, a new thing that's going on. And so I feel like I'm living in this state where I could be called at any time to make a decision that is impactful, that ends up in direct or indirect ways being encoded into the stuff that we're building. And so there's not really like a framework or a thing you can go do. You have to give the answer right now. It's like liminal. It's a continuous process. And I want that response to be humane and productive. I don't just want to react. And there is a bit of tension there, right? Like, you need often to be very efficient and to respond quickly, but I also want to be able to respond thoughtfully and correctly. And so when you think of taking a break, if I tell you now to like do breathing exercises every hour or 10 press-ups, you're going to be like, okay, but I have so much to do. I don't have that time for that nonsense. And that's what my superego tells me as well. It's like, dude, you just need to crack on. You've got like so much to do. Just get it done. And it doesn't feel efficient, and it's not efficient in the kind of there and now. It's not ticking off a to-do list item. You can put in your to-do list if you like, but it's a bit weird. It's not shipping anything. And I find it really difficult to step out of that like rational mental domain back to like my body and doing something. I don't really welcome those flows, like interruptions to my flow. But something I've come to realize living in the south of Portugal, where like everything is a bit slower than the rest of Europe. You can go around the corner, you don't know if it's going to be a Ferrari or a teenager on a scooter or a donkey in car. Any of those are possible. And so you just have to like drive a bit more carefully and slowly. It's not like the UK where if you're more than like half a meter out of sync with the traffic around you, like everyone starts getting mad. Everyone understands it's a bit of a weird and wild place. So you have to leave more space to be human. So yeah, inefficiency can be a feature, not a bug. It can leave space for people to be people, to include the nuance and to feel the creative tensions. Like, there doesn't have to be a single answer to everything. Often the things that are most interesting, most valuable, most enjoyable are like where you do keep that space open, where you do allow there to be possibilities. black and white are boring, grey is kind of interesting. I don't know who Albert is, but Kobe's one of the good guys on crypto Twitter, and he said this quote, so I wanted to recognise both of them. But it really stuck with me, that idea that we're building these systems that maybe strip out a lot of nuance, and we are self-encoding tyranny. Anyway, so maybe some of you are already like expert grass touchers. Maybe you think I'm like backward for not being able to do this stuff and integrate it into my life. It wasn't stuff that came easy to me. Like, I first had to realize that being stuck in my head was like not always a good thing. It let me be effective and focused and productive, but also not. I felt like stuff was missing. The second has been learning techniques to get out of my head, to reconnect with myself, to self-regulate. I don't mean like all the time. I just mean enough of the time so that I feel like I take that agency and keep the ability to respond in a human way. So we tried a bit of triangular breathing. Here are a bunch of other things I do, some or all of, depending on where I am and what I'm in the mood for. But like even just last night, I was scrolling Twitter and there's some new research like going for a stroll in the woods with a rock in your hand for 10 minutes is like boosts your creativity 2x, whatever it was. Obviously it's on social media, so like take that with a pinch of salt, but these different techniques work differently for different people, but they're all about reconnecting. How does your body feel? Can you notice that? When you have to make a decision, is that just like a quick mental reaction, or is it something that you let past that kind of defensive consciousness and notice and then respond in a way that feels true and coherent? So yeah, hopefully some of these things will help you retain a bit of agency. But inevitably, in this line of work, we all spend a lot of time in that rational realm. Like you can't, I mean, I feel fine doing some exercise and reconnecting with my body for a few minutes every hour if I'm being paid, but not like all day, every day. So we have to spend a lot of time in that rational space, and we have to deal with this hyper-ego online. So I also wanted to balance out those kind of like embodied self techniques with some mental tricks that I use when I'm like just thinking. And it was really this guy, Laurie Voss, he's the creator of NPM and other cool projects. Anyway, I just find him like a very interesting person. And this is what sort of set me off down that path. And then I kind of keep an eye out for other ones like, you know, problem versus puzzle. And trying to think of AI not as artificial intelligence. It feels a bit like threatening and weird and alien, but like additional. But that's great. I get more intelligence. I can like get it to help me with these things. So is that Lao awful pronunciation, I'm sorry, Lao Tzu, like mind your thoughts, they become your words, mind your words, they become your actions, mind your actions, they become your life. Like, so if you can catch things at the thought stage and reframe them, then they truly change your life, because they change your response, they change the way your body works. So yeah, maybe this will encourage you to collect a little bunch of tools or resources that you can keep in mind and watch for. So yes, after all of this brow furrowing and research and head scratching and reading about complex systems and AI alignment, I basically found this answer to be as good as anything. Like, let's just build. I want to build tools that help me to live and to spend more time with people, my family, my friends. And so, yeah, like, who do the robots work for? They work for whoever builds them. And so it's quite a simple answer. The difficult part of that is, who do you want to be whilst you're building this? Like, who are you as a person? What are your values? How do you honor those in the decisions that you make when you build the systems around you? I'm grateful to work at a company that gives me the opportunity to be what I think is like a non-awful human. I don't feel totally pressured the whole time to be like tweaking algorithms to keep kids engaged with feeds longer. or to sell more plastic stuff. And I'm really grateful for that. I hope this talk was intellectually interesting, that you'll think differently when you see gibbons in the future. And I hope maybe at least a few times you'll remember to notice your body as well as what's going on in your mind. There is a very rich and beautiful path that I'm not going to go into more detail about, but there's an invitation there to explore that stuff. It's not bunkum, it's literally hard science. I've also kept this short talk a little shorter, A, because it's already a lot, but B, because I thought if I was at a talk, I'd quite appreciate another 5 minutes to go and get a coffee, have a pee and talk to some people as well. So that's my excuse. So yeah, maybe use that time to just say hello to somebody else, to be with people. And for what it's worth, if and when the gibbons do start building robots, I think they're going to build some good ones because they seem to know what things are about. They seem pretty cool. That's me. Thanks for coming. Any questions? I don't know. I feel like
well, thanks for the talk. Yeah. Do you know about the quantum mechanic interpretation about time being, or even about physics being uniquely about interactions?
It's a good question. I'm a big fan of quantum science. So your question was about the quantum scientific theory of time being based on interactions, right? Yeah. So I think about that in a couple of different ways. The first is that we think of ourselves as people with the relationships, people first, relationships second. But having done emigrated, having taken me and my network, my immediate family network, and placed it in an entirely different context of things and people, I've really had a personal experience of the power of the edges, the relationships. In a lot of ways, I care far more now about my relationships. So quantum science says nothing ever exists other than its relationship to something else. That's where you get the Heisenberg uncertainty principle and Schrödinger and the wave particle duality and all this stuff. It's only when you create a relationship that something becomes a node. Otherwise, it's all just edges and relationships. And I do think about that a lot when we're thinking about products and services and experiences. It's okay, well, this is your thing, but how does it connect you with everything else, both living and not living? So I love that question for that. The time one's really interesting, and it's not really quantum science, but it is kind of intelligence. So I'm going to roll into it, which is that the brain is essentially a very good prediction machine. It sees patterns, it recognizes, it filters those patterns out so that you can concentrate on the things that filter through, and you have a bunch of these different levels in your neocortex, and it's the things that make it through that then need assimilating. It's what we dream about. It's the things that we notice. It's why art is so powerful, because art is about interrupting. It's about taking something that seems like a normal pattern but then changing it and creating that opportunity to notice. Somewhat evilly, our brains get so good at pattern matching as we get older that less and less makes it through to our consciousness. So we notice less and less, and therefore our perception of the passage of time becomes much more contracted, which is why I believe that if you want to experience life, live more of your life, then you have to keep doing new things and practicing noticing, because that's the bit you notice. Otherwise you drive somewhere and you're oh, I'm here, but I have no idea what happened with the last half hour. Or it's okay, well, that's I worked all day and now it's the end of the day, and I don't know what happened. So yeah, there is that that's an invitation as well. is that kind of where you were going with that stuff, or are you going to tell me about the theory and like blow my mind now?
There is a French philosopher in the 1980s who expanded this notion of relation, because basically in quantum mechanics, time doesn't, to recognize something happening or not, there's no time in the equations. So he's called Bitbol, and there's a guy called Marco Rovelli who's taking this on. He's a quantum gravity, Carlo Rovelli. But everything is connected anyway, so what you're saying is kind of, yeah.
Thank you. I mean, the quantum stuff, who was it that said it? And they're like, if you think you understand it, you don't understand it. It's probably Feynman, wasn't it? Yeah. But you don't need to understand it all to like enjoy the like, I guess, the mental model to profit from it. And that book from Carlo Rovelli, Helgoland, it's like, it's super good. Anyway, yes, thank you for the question. Seems like we're taking like some fairly like left field questions, so anything that's on your mind is welcome here. All right, we'll go chat to somebody new, grab a coffee. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your conference.